Our next story combines both of today's earlier topics, war and communication. Looking at the last 2 years, it feels that the world is back to an age of war, almost like the situation before the 1990s, before the end of the Cold War. Think of what we've achieved since then. There have been great technological leaps over the last 3 decades, like the internet. Many of you are watching us online right now in real time from different corners of the world. How do you think that's possible? The internet, yes. But how exactly? The simple answer is underwater cables. Over 95% of the world's data is transmitted under the oceans via giant data cables that crisscross continents. As of last year, there were 552 major seafloor cables stretching across almost 1.5 million kilometers. You see how they connect every continent on Earth, how they cross all the ocean floors. Well, these cables were laid out during the last 3 decades. They helped connect every corner of the world. But now the West thinks that these cables are in danger. A NATO commander has issued a warning. He fears that Russia is planning an attack as part of a new form of what they call undersea hybrid warfare. This warning was issued by Vice Admiral Didier Molitor. He's the deputy commander of NATO's Allied Maritime Command, also shortened as MARCOM. Now, their commander has issued a warning. He says potential Russian hybrid warfare threatens 1 billion people. It threatens their security, 1 billion people. How did he arrive at this staggering number? He's talking about the population of all NATO countries combined. That's how you get 1 billion. He says they're all at risk, which is a bit of an exaggeration. 1 billion people won't be threatened simultaneously. It's not as though Russia can cut everyone's internet. And even if it somehow manages to, it's not like 1 billion people will die or NATO will be crippled. Yes, their information flow could slow down, or they may have to turn to the alternative, which is satellite internet, like Starlink. So far, satellites only transmit about 3% of the world's data, but Western militaries could always turn to it if needed. So the threat to communication seems a bit overblown. Now let's look at the undersea cables again. See how they circle the globe. I mentioned that there are 552 of them. Multiple cables also connect the same countries. So there are redundancies. It would take a massive coordinated attack to cut all of the cables. It's not something that can be done in secret or in one fell swoop. So don't worry, your evening video streaming session will be safe. An attack might slow down the internet, but it won't stop it. Then why is NATO so nervous? Because it speaks to a larger point: complacency on the security front. A lot of our current undersea infrastructure is vulnerable. It was not designed to resist bombs. And it's not just internet cables. We also have other infrastructure under the seas, like oil and gas pipelines. Remember the Nord Stream blasts? The pipelines were blown up in 2022. They connected Russia to Germany. They allowed Russia to send gas, natural gas, directly to Western Europe. They ran under the Baltic Sea. So Europe got cheap Russian gas and Russia made billions of dollars. It was a win-win until the war in Ukraine, because then Russia turned the taps off. It put Europe in a tough spot, but even as they were trying to wean away from the gas, the pipelines were destroyed. It was a blow, not devastating though. Europe found a way to survive, but it did suffer losses, and NATO wants to avoid that in the future, which is why they're talking about undersea infrastructure. It's a pragmatic move, especially as wars seem to be on the rise, but it's not some end-of-the-world scenario. So maybe NATO should avoid unnecessary fear-mongering and throwing around big numbers like 1 billion people being threatened.